Okie dokie. Awesome.
We on?
On air.
All right, don't mind me, guys. I'm just taking some notes to make
hello.
this even better.
Hello. Yeah. All right. So everybody who's popping in here, welcome, everybody. Feel free to get intimate with your chat box because today is going to be an interactive webinar. So say hello. Let us know where you're from. You should see that on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you've never been on a webinar with us, we don't just say interactive for the sake of having interactiveness, like a lot of maybe webinars you've been on. This really is because this webinar is about you guys, and we'll kind of do a brief introduction here in just a minute. We just want to give everyone an opportunity to get settled in. Also, if you could do us a favor and just let us know that our sound and our video is working okay, we'd really appreciate that as well. And then if it's your first time here, that'd be great to know also. So those are all different opportunities to participate in saying, what's up, Nico? What's going on, Kim? Good to see you guys. And then if you've been with us before, you've never been with, if you've been with us before, if you've never been with us before, both are great. This question is about having your questions answered in the space of personal development. So in front of you guys here are two guys who've been in the personal development game for 16 years. We avidly love, care about working with people. Yeah, Nico, we see you guys. I don't know what you're doing, but
guys.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so we have a global business, and we take care of a lot of different clients in a lot of different ways all over the world, from personal clients who work with us one-on-one to membership communities and organizations that we work with. And we love working with people on transformation. We really feel like it's our life's work, our heart's work. And if you're here, I don't know if people are having a tough time not seeing us or seeing us, because some people are saying it's not working.
I don't know if that's it.
Okay, got it. Oh, cool. Looks like it's working now. So yeah, if you're here, then it's your opportunity to ask us questions about any area of life that's important to you. This is a complete free environment to just kind of say, hey, here's what's going on in my life. And the only coaching I have for you about sharing something that's going on for you is to be as specific as possible. Like we were just on a webinar, on a podcast, and a guy asked us, what's the meaning of life? That's really broad and really general. And while it's so interesting to philosophize over, it's not really gonna like help you very much directly impact the area of your life. So if you have a health question, a question about relationships, a question about money, a question about business, anything that's important to you right now, if you could be as specific as possible with your request, that's gonna help us be specific with our coaching. Cool. All right, so it looks like everybody's working now. Again, I'll just reiterate that in the box, and while you kind of take over for a second.
Okay, cool. So we love the fact that most people are there. There's people here like Marguerite, for example, and I think it's I'm talking about the right Tracy here, but people who have actually been in our programs and paying customers, clients been in our programs, went through the masterclass, which is something we're going to let you guys know about later on today, and keep coming here. So it's just an absolute testament to what these sessions are like if you make full use of them. Galanina neighbor. I forgot to tell her that I left the kids off at the neighbor's house. She's like, where are the kids? All right. So what I'd love to do is, while I'm giving you guys like a very, very brief intro, which will be about a minute, maybe two, I'd love for you guys to drop in your question. Anything that you guys want, any area of life that you're struggling with, if there's a certain situation that you came upon this week or in the last few days that you want massive shift and breakthrough in, please, please, please share it in there. Okay. So real quick about Guy and I, in 2003, we started our personal development journey. So we've been at this now for 15, 16 years. Through that time, I don't know the total amount, but it's just around $1 million. I mean, I did the math. We spent $300,000 on our personal development just in the last 12 months. So we take this stuff, our mastery and learning and growing incredibly seriously. Not seriously as in like we're very playful about it, and we love the fact that we get to learn and grow. We just invest heavily in that because we know that that gives us the best life. Now, why do we invest heavily in that? Is because then that allows us to be better coaches, better human beings, better brothers, better husbands, all of that. And that's really important to us. So if you're here and you don't know us, we play the game of life at the absolute highest level, or attempt to play it, I guess, at the highest level. And really, these calls are designed for a couple of things. One, we want to give you a taste of what it's like to be in one of our programs. And the one specifically that we're going to be talking to you guys about later here today is the opportunity to join our masterclass. And the masterclass is an unbelievable 100-day program where if there's any area in your life right now that you're looking to get massive, massive transformation in, I'm sure Marguerite and Kevin and Tracy can share their experiences if you guys so want. But we want to give you an experience of what that's like and what this coaching is like and how you can start to uncover and then reprogram this operating system. This gentleman asked us on this podcast, you know, how do you guys work with people? You know, what modality? And we're like, guys, like, modality? We don't need no stinking modality.
I didn't quite say it that way, but
you didn't quite say it that way, but that's the way I heard it. Yeah. You know, what's really beautiful, he's like, you know, do you guys use like NLP? And he's like, well, you know, I think what's really cool is we love to explore. And we're clear that there is no one way with every single person. And because of that, we love to learn from different people, whether it's about energy or plant medicine or meditation or NLP or neuroscience or the law of attraction or allowing and everything in between. So I think that's something that I really love about us. We're students just like you are, maybe just a little bit farther down the path. And if at the end of this, you guys feel called to join that path with us and have us be kind of your Sherpas, then we'd absolutely love that. So I see a few questions already popping in, so I'm not going to waste any more time or share any more of our story. But if you guys feel called or you have a question for us specifically about anything, then please don't hesitate. Okay, so we'll jump right in. I
don't say this often. I have no problem. You know, taking a swing at it, certainly out of different sense of jurisdictions, because it's just a very different type of question. And for people that I know that have had experiences like this, it's not something that Elon and I could give you words of wisdom on how to actually navigate something like that, because it's so radically different. So Kim is saying, and by the way, guys, please feel free to drop your questions, because outside of Kim's question, there's actually no other question in there right now that I see. Kim says 2 weeks ago, I experienced a heart attack and had a near-death experience.
Wow.
Everything in my life has changed, and I'm challenged by not knowing how to manage my life. All the things I used to do to self-soothe have gone, and I feel like I'm floating in a new reality. Advise on how to be with that.
Woo.
Yeah, so that's
not the question that I anticipated. I didn't read it. I just thought there was a question.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's why when you're like, we have questions, I'm like, we have a question, and that's like the question. Kim, I mean, well, we're happy you're sitting here.
To be here.
Yeah, happy you chose to be here. You'd be someone I'd be fascinated to talk to, given your experience. I know of a few people who've been in those situations, many of which have actually have had radical awakening experiences, like in the mystical, spiritual sense. Some of which went into bliss states for almost a year straight. And personally, if that arrived in your life and that is something that you experienced, yeah, I'm sure it could be really uprooting, to say the least. So, I would lean into it and just see what's happening, because I'm sure that has a tendency to not just have a spiritual awakening, but reprogram the consciousness in a very radical way. That, like you said, soothing is just like patience right now. This is not like something I can't talk you through de-storying near-death experience. I would look for, on a personal level, and this is really personal, to work with somebody who has a high degree of understanding and experience with energetics, so that they can work with you directly on looking at actually what's happening inside of your system and kind of walk you through how to find rooting again, like how to find ground again. Because if you are going through an awakening experience, it's really wonderful to have somebody who can guide you through it. Certainly that's work that I would love to do with someone. But, on a webinar, that's a much bigger fish to fry than something like that. That's a huge.
So here's what I would say, and this is a question that I think is pertinent to everyone, not just this. It's really this question of, can you accept that which is, right? And in at least I might be reading into this, but in what you just typed, right? I'm feeling like there is this sense of that there is something wrong here and I need to figure out how to fix it. Instead of being with that this is just a new realm or new experience that I now get to experience. And it is in the resistance of everything in our lives that we do not accept where we fall into trouble. So if anything, Kim, just using this experience, but this idea of I'm floating in a new reality, right? All the ways that I used to operate no longer function. Yeah, I can absolutely get how to your mind, that is a really, really scary place to be. Because all the things that were now seem somehow different, and it's just, you're walking in uncharted water. One of the biggest things that we take people through, and especially in the masterclass through the 7-part sequence, is this ability to be with the unknown. And that doesn't mean that the fear isn't there. It just means that you get a lot more comfortable being uncomfortable. All of you have learned and grown the most when you were uncomfortable. We rarely take notice and or learn when everything is working well in our lives. Your greatest lessons are when you've been broke. Your greatest lessons are when your heart's been broken, or when you lost your job, or maybe even had a near-death experience. So if you know that and you feel that to be true because you know through your life experience and that's how it's been, then having that ability to, in the now, allow for and accept that which is, instead of being in an argument and trying to figure out how to make it some other way, that's a great gift.
Yeah.
That's an absolutely amazing gift.
And Kim, if I can, I don't know what an NDE is to you. I don't know if you actually passed and saw something and then came back, or if you were on the table and physically dealing with things and almost passed, or whatever it might be. Some of the most profound people that I know, and actually a guy I'll be seeing in 4 hours from today, one of the most enlightened beings I know, actually got awoken from a near-death experience. And the experience was so big that it took him about 9 months to reintegrate back into the body fully. And then now has been on a path for years of from that explosion of energy, bringing in the wisdom and understanding on what actually happened and stuff like that. So for a lot of people, like most things in life, if you stop looking at life as a beginning and an end, and as a transition to transformations, I think an NDE is a very sudden transition and transformation into potentially like you're in your body, but kind of in a new way. So things are shifting and changing very quickly. And I agree. It's like how you show up now in the face of the experience is going to determine everything. I could see a lot of people using that as a traumatic experience and going to like a little victim about it, like, oh my God. And then there's the huge opportunity where it's like, okay, you've seen now a glimpse of the fragility of this life, or, you know, this body and this life. And then there's an opportunity to start looking at what really is beyond. Most people, it's not like mystical or magical type of experiences are wrong. It's just a type of psychology and neurology. And then there's like the really pragmatic neurology and psychology. Like we get to marry all those things into life together. So again, like, you know, I don't want to keep berating it because like I don't know your personal experience and what you're actually feeling right now. So I don't want to make any assumptions. And I think there's a huge opportunity on the horizon for you. That's like, talk about the ultimate life reset.
My chat box didn't actually scroll, so I just didn't realize that there was other things. But Kim was actually saying this is so helpful. Thank you. Kevin writes, I used to run away from my fears going through this transformation. They seem to pop up more often now. Let me see if.
Yeah. And Kim, just so you know, like Elon and I, to some extent, have like an ability to track systems also. I mean, it feels very positive. You know, I'm sure it's very alarming. It feels like what's happening is positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim, you know, souls that have this experience, and I've read a ton of stuff on near-death experiences, so I personally haven't had it, but souls that have this experience and choose to stay in the physical world generally are provided with incredible gifts. Like I know people that have gone to the other side and come back with 5D vision, being able to see and track people's like entire systems, seeing color grids and lines, and seeing like nanotechnology inside them. Like there's some amazing things that people get access to. It's very easy for the mind to focus on like the mind is a freak out machine, because anything that's unknown, it's freaking out about. So that's going to be there. Allow that to be there. Don't judge that or make that piece wrong. And guys, this is true for any single one of you, no matter what you're going through in your life right now, right? Like the voice and all its concerns and worries will be there. You can still show up powerfully and choose the perspective that you, your higher self, your soul, wants in any given situation, while all that other noise, white noise, is there, right? That being there doesn't mean that you're out of alignment or there's something wrong with you or anything like that. It's just noticing it. That's great. Not like noticing it and being like, oh, shut the fuck up, like get away from me, da, da, da. Just noticing it. And then bring yourself back to, for me, it's always like, in every single moment of every single one of your lives right now, you can find something that you're grateful for. It's super easy to look at somebody else or whatever and go like, oh, my life is not like theirs, or my business is not like theirs, or my body's not like theirs, or my relationship is not, right? It's super easy. That's where the mind wants to go. It takes a lot more effort to find what in your life you can choose to be grateful for. That's the practice. So, you know, instead of focusing on, for me, if I were in your situation, instead of focusing on how it feels strange or floaty, or I've lost this or lost that, I would get hyper focused on what are these new abilities that I've gained? What are the new superpowers that I have? What are the things that I get now access to that I never had access to before? I would like sit and meditate and go, I've never felt that before. I've never had that experience before. And see what's there, because that's, I think, where your gold is going to be.
Yep. Awesome.
All right, we got more questions, yeah?
Thank you for sharing that, by the way. That's
amazing.
There's not often that there's like new that comes in. Talking about NDEs as new. I find it fascinating. Again, like some of those most prolific people I know have had those experiences. And I really hope it's a turning point for something really amazing, beautiful, and like a sense of not just peace, but like purpose in the world. Depending on what you experienced, it can be revolutionary for the type of person you are.
And I would love for you to, I think you're definitely, Kim, in our personal development without the fluff Facebook group. I would love, you know, whether you feel called to share that in the group with all of us and like share as this experience unfolds. If you don't feel comfortable and you want to share with us privately, I would just love to hear how this unfolds for you as it does.
Cool. So let's.
Liza.
Hold hold on. I got two that I want to like stack together, and so it'll be Liza's. So Liza says, I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety lately. Broadcast this so you guys can see it too. Lately, having great difficulty to believe my finances will fall into place. I speak positive, but it is as if my inner self doesn't believe. Hope I'm making sense. Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And then I think we can kind of play that with what Corinna just posted here. So it's her first time here. Can you speak on how guilt shame impacts abundance? I'm currently finding the courage to speak, share about parts of my life with others because I instinctively feel like it is the next step to open my life to more abundance. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So I'll let you swing on that.
Absolutely brilliant. So why don't you take a first stab, and then I'll take some notes as you're talking.
Bad choice of words when we're talking about NDs. All right. So yeah, to Lisa, right? So anxiety, all these things. So the first thing I just want to get everyone present to here is that a lot of times when we focus on personal development work, we get left with a sense of empowerment, right? So the empowerment movement that started really in the 1980s, at least in the Western world, a lot of it is like the rah-rah, I'm going to become so aware, so powerful. And then because I'm so aware and this powerful, then anxiety, sadness, stress, anger, like all these things will just no longer be part of the formula. I will find a way to circumvent them. Okay. So if you've been in the personal development space and you've had that experience, certainly I have had it too, because I lived with that idea for about 10 years. I'm like, well, there's got to be this point where I'm this fucking guru. And then at that point in time, like all these issues will disappear. And I actually did work with that belief in mind. Today, I actually see how that is really counteractive. It works against you because what you're putting off is your opportunity to feel whole. Again, whole doesn't mean that you take certain parts of yourself and you throw them over here and you say, well, you know, I want to keep 80% of these pieces, but this 20% I'm going to go throw away. And then every time that 20% shows up, you're like, man, didn't I work on this already? Like I thought I had a breakthrough in this, right? So I want you to get that your mind, your conscious mind, is never going to react faster than the instinctual subconscious mind. Because the subconscious is reacting well before the conscious mind. And everything really starts in the body with what we use in language to call sensations. So by the time you've had an emotion, right? You've had this sensation, now it's an emotion. But by the time you called it an emotion and a feeling, the mind has chimed in with some judgment about what that sensation in the body is. So you're like, oh, I'm having a sensation. Oh, that's anxiety, right? Now that's already a judgment. So that judgment now starts a series of experiences for you, right? And like, this is how I respond when I have anxiety. For a lot of people, it's like cigarettes, alcohol, food, sex, you name it, right? I truly believe that 95% of all actions that people are taking are in an effort to relieve anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. So this is really common. Everybody's experiencing anxiety. I go through waves of it throughout the entire day. The real question is like, how are you with it when it arises? Is it a peaceful experience and I can bring it into my experience and see the perfection in it? Or am I at odds and I tighten up and I do all these kind of things, right? So for whatever reason, for you right now and for a lot of people, right, finances is, at least in the current conversation, a way that we create the illusion of safety. So when we have it, anxiety is less. When we don't have it, anxiety is more. And some of the things that we really work on is because me and you, we can have a conversation and we can understand your anxiety really, really well, right? But at some point, you're going to have something in your environment that creates anxiety. Like, for instance, if you had a bad breakup and your boyfriend or girlfriend, you know, had a certain type of dog or drove a truck with a certain kind of color, when you see that dog or when you see that truck, your subconscious is actually going to respond with anxiety. Like, you can't stop that. But the real question is when the energy comes moving up. So now you're having this emotion, right? And Elon and I like to break up the word emotion and just say it's energy in motion. So energy is now trying to move through your body, right? It's trying to go through this pass, but your brain has a judgment, and the judgment collapses it, contracts it, and keeps it in place. And this is what a lot of people are dealing with, and then the energy doesn't move. So I want to give you a quick analogy, because imagine if you took like a morsel of food, or imagine we ate food, and then the food didn't come out of your body. okay? Like you were constipated. So if you've ever been constipated, it hurts a lot. And on top of that, now the food is actually rotting in your system and rotting you from within. Think of energy as it's doing exactly the same thing. When the energy process starts in the body, if we don't let it process, because what energy wants to do is it wants to metabolize. When it metabolizes, there's a natural healing effect on the body, and like a neurological connection space between the mind and the heart that opens, that allows for new programming to come in. But when we always respond with judgment, all we do is reaffirm the old programming over and over and over again. So what most people are doing is they create some kind of unrealistic goal, right? Like I want to make a certain amount of money, or I want to lose a certain amount of weight. However, their programming has been set to a certain frequency or a certain thermostat, call it whatever you want to call it, to a certain thing for so long that the body, every time you think about that goal, it actually creates a subconscious anxiety in the system. And the moment you create that anxiety in the system, all you end up doing is driving your machine, so to speak, back into its survival patterns that it's always used to get through things. And then you automatically take some actions, have the same conversations, and it's like rinse, cycle, repeat. So one of the things that we want to look at is like, what are your goals? Like, how are you thinking about this problem right now? And is the way that you're thinking about the issue creating the very overwhelm that you're trying to alleviate by creating the outcome? So what we look for is, what is the thing that feels good to you now that you can create, that while you're looking at it, you have a positive association with it and it doesn't bring up all the anxiety. Now, if the anxiety appears, what we would work on you with is actually how to be with that system instead of trying to defeat it, how to not be in opposition of it, how to actually literally welcome it in, make friends with it, have peace, and how to identify at different points of the body, what is the actual response? Am I afraid? Am I sad? Am I angry about what's happening? And as we start uncovering the layers, it becomes really clear about why you're having certain emotional responses to what's going on. And the more awareness you have about this as they arise, you go, oh, there's that thing happening again. And instead of going, go away, you're like, oh, welcome. You welcome it in. So this is the last piece I'll say. When you welcome this in, it's like, these are the young parts of you, right? Like anxiety is a very young, afraid part of you. This usually lives in the stomach, by the way. You probably can't see my stomach, but I'm pointing down here. And what ends up happening is, it's like this part of you is basically requiring your attention, or, you know, like I said, energy is trying to metabolize it. It's asking you for your attention. But the way we've been programmed in society is, I'm having an emotional response. Now let me bypass and go back to work. So when that happens, I want you to imagine like this part of you is like a little like 3 or 5-year-old, because that's really where this story began, right? You've been telling it for many decades now, but it began with like a traumatized child. So if you can imagine like a 3-year-old comes to you and you're like, I'm really scared right now. I'm anxious and I'm not feeling safe. And instead of you listening to the child, you're like, get away from me, get out of here. And you're like, I got work to do. I got food to do. I got to go to the gym. And what happens is you don't actually give yourself the space and the time to patiently let that metabolize through. And then it gets stuck and it just keeps kind of looping through your system over and over again in like a fixated manner. And this is something that we really get to start shifting with people, is that your top priority when you're having some kind of response is to not deal with it by trying to change the external circumstances, but actually going inside, having patience. It might take a few minutes, it might take 5 or 10 minutes just to be with that part of yourself. And as you allow for it to be there, what naturally happens in the system is the energy metabolizes. But when the energy metabolizes and that starts to move, all the emotions, feelings, thoughts, actions that were connected to it, they disappear along with it. So you actually go to the core and move the core, and then everything that's connected to that core stops being at the effect. Does that mean you're going to see the shift like that? Sometimes. It depends on the situation. But oftentimes, as you just start putting awareness on the sensations in your body more and more, it'll be like a month later, and then, you know, your mom or your dad or your business partner or your boss or your girlfriend or boyfriend, they say something, and suddenly you just were like, usually when they say that, my body's freaking out, and there's just no response. And it's just because you paid attention to it. It's just like the way people are. If you really listen to somebody, like really listen to them, without adding your shit on top of it, without trying to fix them and change them and do all the things that we do, people like will just get their own shit. They'll feel like this. They'll get all the answers they need just by having that mirror over there. You are like your own mirror. And these parts of you want you to listen. But we've trained society to say boys don't cry, girls don't run this way, you know, like all these little rules. So when you're having these sensations, the response is shame and guilt right away, instead of, oh, look at that, I'm having an emotional experience. So we've become very bad at feeling. And it's something that we get to get better at. And when you get better at feeling, it actually naturally heals the body.
Yeah, I love all that. There's just one quick thing I'm going to echo from you.
Okay.
So the one thing that I think you're both alluding to, so in the masterclass, there's actually 7 distinctions that we take you through. And one of the first ones on actually week 1 is this whole concept of shoulds. And we kind of touched on it with Kim. What I would offer you is to take a look at how shoulds, like I should have this amount of money, I should have this amount of success in my business. That puts you in 2 things. One, you're in a contrast bias state, meaning you're looking at other people and gauging that they're somewhere that you want to be and you're not there yet. That creates anxiety, right? The other thing is we have these grand visions and grand plans of where we want to get to. And then we try to outline and figure out like 20, 30, 90 steps ahead, trying to figure out for all of these different nuances and what's going to happen. And as soon as we start planning ahead, we're no longer in the present moment, clearly, right? We start planning ahead. Do you notice that when you start planning ahead, your mind will actually create problems that you will face down the road that are so far removed from where you currently are right now? But the fact that you're worrying about them and creating these problems in the present moment, you're freaking out. I'll give you an example. We were talking to a potential client, and this idea came up that we would not just coach him, but we would coach the entire organization that he was a part of. I think there was like 5 or 6 partners. And I got so excited by the idea, right, that we're then talking to my coach like a few days later, and I'm sharing this, and I'm like, but you know what? I'm really nervous. Like, I don't know, how would we structure the contract, and how would we structure the coaching program? Like, how much money do we ask for? All this stuff. And she stops and kind of laughs at me. She goes, Elon, notice where you're at. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, what are you worried about? Are you worried about like the now, the here, the now? Or are you projecting into some place in the future and you're worrying about that? And the second she said that, I was like, holy shit. I'm like, I had a conversation with one of them, didn't get in front of the other partners, didn't get into depth if this is even something they want, something they need, what they want, nothing. I'm already like, what's the contract going to look like? How much? And we do this all the time. We just future pace our life, and then the anxiety has nothing to do with where we are in the present moment. The anxiety has to do with where things are heading or not heading, which is all made believe. So one of the distinctions that I really want to share with you guys is this whole concept of should. Notice in your life where you have things like, it should be this way, I should be this way, I should not be this way, they should not be this way. If any of those thoughts or words are leaving your mouth, I can tell you 100% you are no longer living in the present moment. You've implemented this contrast biased thing, and now your brain's going haywire, creating all sorts of what ifs that have nothing to do with your reality. And that creates this entire rise of anxiety, of guilt, of shame, of all of that stuff. And if we're talking about manifestation, right? We're talking here about creating the frequency of abundance and manifestation. Can you possibly create that which you want? Karina, or I think it was Liza, could you possibly create what it is that you want from a state of shame and guilt? That is the lowest vibrational frequency. If you're in a state of shame and guilt, what you will naturally attract are more opportunities and more circumstances in your life to experience more shame and guilt. So the only way to transition from that, shoulds is a beautiful tool. Because once you start, you know, like we make this joke in the training, like stop shooting all over everything. because that's what we do. I should be this way. I should be that way. I shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't be that way. This and this. So just notice if over the next few days you can just start to catch those shoulds and reprogram them. Create a new perspective. One of the things that we train later on in that masterclass is something called empowering context, which I don't really want to get into right now because I want to answer some other questions. But that in conjunction with shoulds just makes an absolutely powerful transformation for people very, very quickly.
Yeah. So I want to make like 3 quick distinctions. You can hear me, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. 3 quick distinctions for you guys, right? We have our instinct. We have our intellect. And we have our intuition. So the instinct is the part that we really don't have much say over. In fact, we have no say. This has been built into our DNA over millions of years of evolution. It's why when you hear a loud noise, you jump out of the way, or different responses that you have that are just like automated. When you're like falling down and you catch yourself and you feel like you're like the world's best superstar. It's like you can't re or unprogram that. It's built in because it's proven for our survival, right? Then we have our intelligence. This is where most of the planet is stuck or either lacks that also, but like basically saying that like the importance is on having understanding of how everything works all the time. And it's not that there's an issue with intelligence. Intelligence is great. It makes you sound wonderful at dinner parties and you are so smart and everybody claps about your intelligence. But the issue with intelligence is that it does have limitations and it creates an illusion that everything has, like if you think about the way that the world is right now, the world's very stuck in a conversation for resiliency and understanding. But the more that we learn and we take away the mystery of things, we lose something there too. So I'm not vilifying intelligence. I love reading. I love learning. It's beautiful. But then there's the last part, it's intuition. So you can say like the intellect is like the male energy. You can say the intuition is like the female energy. And if you've ever been in a relationship and the woman's like, I want to eat something and I want to do this and I want to do that, but like she doesn't get to an answer. And the man's like, well, I want to help you. I want to get to the end result that you're looking for, but what the hell do you want, right? So it's like these two energies that are at play. And something really special happens when you start balancing this. And what Elon and I work with a lot of our clients is giving them the awareness over their mind so they understand how the phenomenology of the mind is working. Once that happens, then you can get into the energy field and the intuitive parts of the body. But something really special happens when you find a balance and you connect those two things. And your life can literally be driven through really simple questions like, does this feel good right now? Nope, then I don't do it. Yep, then I do it. For those that don't need a reason for that and they can follow that thread, some amazing stuff will happen. Whether or not you decide to work with us or not, if there's something that you could take away from this thing, is run an experiment on if something feels good in the morning, just go do it. If you have a thought about an individual, just call them. See what happens when you start following these threads and you don't just go, oh, that's weird that I thought about them, and then not act on it. And that's how you get to connect your intuition with this kind of like doing process. So somebody asked about like self-defeating. I just don't have all the questions here anymore. What was the question here real quick? There's Liza, but she said something else over there that I liked. Anyway, so for like the pragmatic minds, what I want you guys to take away is that, again, we've been programmed to not feel. Right? Like we've been told what like manage our feelings. Here's what you can, here's what you can't. The issue is, again, we can't stop as these things are bubbling through our consciousness. And then when they arrive, if you make them wrong, you don't go to the experience. The message you're sending down to the subconscious. And I really believe the subconscious is the connection between the body, heart, and mind all together. Like you can't access your subconscious through thought. You guys got that? You can access your subconscious through feeling. Absolutely. So the feeling is driving everything. So if you can get this, that every time you don't feel, what you're saying to your body is, hey, I'm not worthy of having this experience, or I'm not worthy of fully having this experience. And imagine every time a sensation happens in the body, you're like, nope, nope, I'm not worthy. Nope, I'm not worthy. Nope, I'm not worthy. And then you look around the planet and you go, well, if the number one problem on the planet is a lack of self-worth, you can start seeing how we start developing this, okay? Now, I want to transition this because a lot of people will start asking questions about, like, well, how do I manifest what I want in my life? Like, you guys were asking about finances and anxiety and stuff like that, right? Well, it all comes down to kind of what I just said right now. Every time you start giving space for these things to show up, you're saying, like, I am worthy of having this experience. I am, right? Because if you don't, then how can you manifest something like, right? Like all this energy is around you and it wants to come at you, millions of dollars. But the moment that it comes at you, if your system responds with, I'm not worthy of that, even if you had $1 million, you would sabotage it. You would get rid of it because your subconscious has anxiety when there's that much money there. It doesn't know how to handle it. So it will find ways to get rid of the money. This is why we sabotage relationships. This is how we sabotage businesses. This is how we sabotage our health. It has nothing to do necessarily with your conscious desires. It has to do with how your subconscious is set up. And if your subconscious is set up, and that's what anxiety is showing you, by the way, is what your subconscious is saying. It's saying what you're not worthy of. And the way you start becoming worthy of that is starting to allow those emotional experiences to come through again. Then somebody hands you $1 million, you go, I'm fucking worthy of that. And you can actually say it. Otherwise, it's like you have two systems and they're at odds. One system says yes and the other one says no. And they polarize, right? And then you don't have alignment in the body and the energy's not clearly moving in. So it's almost like you're sending two different signals to source. So you could say like, if this is what's visualizing, right? We visualize with this and we're saying to the greater intelligence, here's what I want. That's like giving it the blueprint. What attracts it back in is the feeling in the body. That's the magnet that attracts it back in. So if that magnet is set to I'm not worthy, great. You can visualize all day long, but your body's going to reject this constantly. And if you're not quite tracking, guys, this is what I mean. Like this happens because like think about people who win the lottery, right? They suddenly go from being either poor or whatever, like, middle class or whatever it might be, to having just millions and millions and millions of dollars. But their subconscious is that they're not worthy of that money. And that's why 95% of people just track the cases end up as poor or poorer than they were when they got the money, because they're like, holy shit, they're just trying to get rid of the anxiety that the money is creating. And again, this is what's affecting a lot of people in every area of life.
So I just want to point out something, and this is so perfect, Liza. Like, I'm so happy that this occurred. So I just want to read back, and I want to see if you guys can catch this. So I asked Liza and I asked Karina if what we had shared as the answer landed for them, if it made a difference, if it added value, right? So Liza's response was definitely. I should stop shoulding. Great help. Definitely. I should stop shoulding. You guys catch this? Like, this is how rampant this stuff is. You just get this like huge insight, right? I'm going to stop shoulding. And then the way it comes out is I should stop shoulding.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That energy, right? Of I should X, whatever that is, inside of that, feel that in your classic. Inside of that, feel that in your system, right? Why is shoulding so valuable to understand? Because if you say I should, then inherently in that is that I lack that. This is wrong. This needs to be different somehow.
I have to.
That acceptance piece falls out. And we know this, what we resist persists. The energy that you use to force something away from you is the same amount of energy and force that it will come back into your life. When we allow things to be, Buddha called it equanimity. That's a tough word to say, right? Just allow. Just realize that in this moment, this perfection of a moment, I just get to experience it. And in doing that, it does what every moment has done before it. It disappears. It goes back into the ether and you get to experience something new. The second you opine on something, this is good, please don't leave. This is bad, get the fuck away from me. That's when stuff stays around. So if you're worried constantly about being broke, if you have guilt, shame, anxiety about being broke, that is resistance energy. That's what keeps it in place. Remove that. Allow for the experience to just be, and like everything else in life, just like the weather, it will shift and turn to something else. Has your life ever been all down? No. Has your life ever been all up? No. Has your life ever been just flatlined? No. That's not the life that we chose as souls to come into this physical being. We come here to experience all of it. So just, I wanted to make you aware of that, because as I read it, I was just cracking up. Like, that's being human.
Mm-hmm.
And Liza, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like, that is just perfect, amazing feedback. That's like one of those moments you're like, wow, that's amazing. That's how this thing runs me. And just so you guys understand, like, it's so funny because we were just on this podcast and he was asking all these questions. And I said, look, he said, why do people work with you, and how do you work with them? And I use this analogy, which I don't think I've used in a really long time, but I think he was like, oh, that's really interesting, which is, you know, every one of us has a smartphone, right? And we have certain functions on the smartphone and certain apps. Now, if an app no longer works or serves you or is as efficient as another app, what do you do with that app? You delete it and you go get a new one, right? But we don't do that in our lives. For the most part, I mean, you guys are brilliant because you're here. I know that you're actually in the process of investigating at least these apps, these programs that we have running in the background. Like, you're way ahead of the curve. There's a whole human population that doesn't even know that this conversation exists right now, right? So like, you're the smart ones. Now the question is, how do I uncover these apps that have been running my life for a long time, producing X results over and over and over? And the better question is, once I find them, how do I actually remove and upgrade them? And by the way, that's the process. Like, that is, for Guy and I, ongoingly, that is the process. What if you had that ability where you can literally see and uncover these things and then remove and upgrade them? That's the process.
So to Helen's question, right? She says, question is around best techniques to release blocks to abundance. Listening and writing splits my concentration. Just trying to see if I can release this block, this abundance. Thank you. Look, it's so funny. Like 3 years ago, you would never catch me saying this, but today it's so obvious to me. Like, whatever you come to me with, the answer is love yourself more. You know, why can't you attract what you want? Because there's some part of your subconscious that doesn't believe you deserve that. And if you're like, that doesn't quite align for me. Like, I can think up here, I know what I want, I know what I deserve, right? But life shows up differently, right? So let's look at the evidence as it's real. If it's not here right now, something's at play that's not allowing for that to come through. There's this case study I like to talk about, and I'll just mention it here really briefly, where they give people like they put them in a seat, they give them an electric shock. And then they tell them that we're going to proceed to give you a few more shocks, and they're going to progressively get stronger. And they say, well, and there's one caveat. If you want, we're going to give you the strongest shock first, then we'll give you the other ones. And what do you guys think that people choose in overwhelming numbers? So we're going to talk about the how do I love yourself more piece right now, Nico. So what do you think people choose? They choose the strongest shock, right? They choose what you would choose. So why do people choose the strongest shock? Because the first shock created anxiety in the system. And now the system wants to relieve the anxiety. So the quickest way to do that is to experience the worst of what you're imagining. So if you are like in a relationship, right? And the moment you get into a relationship and it gets too intimate, you start thinking, they're going to leave me, right? Like something in your past created a situation where somebody left you, made you feel abandoned, alone, not safe, whatever it might be. And now that became like an instinct for you. Like, you know what? I leave him first, right? It's like a survival mechanism because then you don't have to experience the pain of loss. So now you start having that thought, shit, they're going to leave me. Like, where did that thought percolate from? Was it something that they did, or is this an experience that you've had before? And then it seems like everybody leaves me. They're all assholes that leave me, right? But at the end of the day, or they're crazy, they leave me, whatever it might be. At the end of the day, something created anxiety in the system. And now your subconscious goes out and creates situations in which they communicate with you in a certain way, you know, or they act to you in a certain way. And you're sourcing how that's happening so that they leave you. And then you go, see, they left me. I knew that was going to happen. But the point is that your subconscious needed them to leave you to relieve the anxiety that it was constantly feeling, right? And then you go through those cycles. So like you can kind of tap that onto everything. So we've been talking about how to love yourself more everywhere. I want you guys to notice that as you've tried to figure out how to become more abundant, how to be more loving, how to how to be less angry, how to be less sad, you've probably taken the position like, here is something I got to overcome. And I want you to notice that that hasn't resolved the issue. when you go do deep meditative work, I mean like deep meditative work. So for me, when I say deep meditative work, I sat in silent meditation for 10 days. The basis of all Buddhist training is to be where you are without any attachment or any resistance, or said in their words, without craving or without aversion, right? So in all times, we're kind of bouncing between our attachments, like, oh my God, that's good. And no, I don't want that. And because like when you don't want something, then you go through an experience, it gives you a breakthrough. You end up where you kind of feel like you want to be. Then you kind of, grab hold and you attach to it. But they really are just both different forms of resistance. So the reason you meditate so much is so you can literally be the observer and observe everything that's happening in your body without any judgment. What you find, or what I found, I can't speak for everybody, what I found when I meditated at that way is that when the moment I could see a response in my system without my mind projecting judgment on it, essentially what was happening is my mind got the signal, oh, this isn't important. Because think about what happens is you see something in front of you and you judge it. And that judgment tells the brain, this is important, make a connection to it. And it connects it to whatever that's connected to, right? Like these millions of different connections you have in your brain. However, if that situation comes up again and you're just like, great, I'll be with what's so, that's it. You're no longer sending that judgment programming to the brain, and you basically say, not important, just observe. And it literally disconnects, and you feel like a completely different person because suddenly everything that was important and connected to that thing untangles itself. So the bottom line is like, Nico asks, well, how do I love myself more? That's like saying, well, how do I feel more? You're asking, and I just want to kind of point to it because this is how Western pragmatic mind we've become. I say, hey, it's time to be more. You get to be now. You just get to be angry. You just get to be sad. You just get to be joyful. No reason. Just be because it's here to be it. And then you go, well, how do I do that? And you start asking, how do I questions to be. You can't get to being from doing. And I get it because I ask the same questions, like that curiosity is there. The first thing is just get curious. Well, how do I get to be? Second thing is, as you start having sensational experiences in your bodies, when they come up, instead of trying to figure it out, why do I feel sad today? Just be that you are sad right now. It's not wrong that you are. There's just something going on in the system. And notice how being in opposition of sadness or anger doesn't make sadness and anger goes away. It increases it. Because now you're like, there must be something wrong with me. I shouldn't be having this experience. Why are they responding to me this way? Fuck this world, right? Cascading effect. Instead of just like, wow, I'm noticing I'm sad right now. Okay. And just being with what's so in this moment, which is that you're sad right now, and that's okay. And this is the moment you start giving your body permission to do this, by the way, it starts doing it more rapidly. And at times it is overwhelming because you're like, shit, I didn't want all these emotions back up. I didn't know that I wanted them. But here's the thing. That's how your system is built. Your environment is going to stimulate your body whether you want it to or not. It's just what it does. What we're calling emotions and feelings is a different language. It's a language that our body speaks. Our language up here is English or whatever language you learned, right? It's a practical, logical, mathematical type of language. The body has its own language, and it's feeling. But that feeling is giving you perfect guidance and feedback from your environment, and it's untainted by the mind. This is the pure response to your environment. It's the perfect feedback all the time. So if you start looking at this like, wow, I'm just getting information. Okay, I'm sad. Something I'm doing right now doesn't make me feel good. That's good information to have, right? And all these different parts, by the way, both have shadows and they have positive things. If you're stuck in some kind of sensation and you're always like, this is negative, you should sit and ask the question, what are the positive aspects of sadness? What are the positive aspects of anger? Notice that it's holistic. And then the things that you actually divert to that are really positive aspects of you, this isn't to degrade them. It's just to like start having these contemplations, is to ask yourself, what are the negative aspects of this? And the reason for this is it allows for more of a holistic approach when we start looking at things. Nothing is one thing. Everything is kind of both and all the time. When we sit in that space, it allows for us to be in the present moment with what is. Guys, your opinions, and I'm going for a while here, but hopefully this is like landing. Your opinions about what is doesn't change anything about what is right now. So you can either take the stance of resistance. I'm going to have a judgment. I'm going to resist what's happening right now, and worry, anxiety, and overwhelm, and blah, 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 blah. Or I'm going to just see that my life has shown me that the things that I've worried about work out, usually in my favor and for my best, right? Like you look back 5 years after a challenge has happened, you're like, wow, thank God that happened to me. In the moment, you're like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Same situation. So if you can kind of take on that like 5 years down the road energy, like, okay, this is serving me. Right now it's serving me. Do you think you need those 5 years to get all those lessons, or can you start having that level of appreciation now? Right? And this is how we start kind of untangling the system, so to speak. And Nico here was asking about negative thoughts. It's really the same thing. The negative thoughts are a habitual pattern of when I have the sensation in my body, I judge myself. This tightening, I judge myself. This is happening, I judge myself. And instead of judgment, just see if you can start being with what's so. Those things will naturally kind of unravel. Yeah.
So, you know, as you were doing this, I had written for myself just to be aware of and conscious of, you know, we were talking about the masterclass, and the masterclass is designed really interestingly. It's basically like a 3-pronged approach. So there's a 7-part curriculum that we walk you through, and I actually wrote those down. And those are delivered to you in recordings. These are trainings that Guy and I have done, and you receive those. Then once you watch those, it kind of like what you're experiencing now, right? This whole conversation about shoulds and feelings and thoughts and all that stuff. And then you get to go practice that. Now, when you go practice that, this is the first time you're doing it, right? Training wheels are on. You're getting on the bike for the first time. You think you're going to nail it out the gate? Think again, right? The beauty is that how do you support someone as they're falling and failing forward? So what we added was a component where inside of a small group with people that you're going to be going through this process with, we actually put 2 different coaches in there. So you're working through all these little hurdles and blockages that you're going to start to see as these different things come up. And then in addition to that, there's also a one-on-one coach component that you can get access to where you can go really deep into your own personal story, right? So I wrote these down, and as I wrote them, you know, like Guy was talking, and I was like, wow, this is, I don't know that we planned this quite this well when we did it, but it's pretty brilliant. Like, you know, you guys are asking like, how do you do this, right? What's the process? So we maybe knowingly, unknowingly through spirit kind of came up with this, and it's such a beautiful process. So bro, check this out. So I'm going to just read you what they are and what I believe happens during this process. So mission number 1 is shoulds, what we kind of spoke to you guys about today. That's the uncovering what's there, right? Like uncovering what's been holding you back. The next piece is we talk about responsibility. And in responsibility, you're going to actually start to remove what you guys are talking about right now, the negative thoughts and associations you have about yourself and others. You actually start to remove them. Piece number 3 is creating empowering context. This is actually when you reprogram your brain. You are physically creating new programs in step 3. Step 4, we call a feedback loop. Now, when a program is first put in place, right, what does the system want to do? It wants to keep going to the default system, right? The one that it's comfortable with, the one it's used. So how do you stop that from happening, or how do you create the transition into the new system faster? You do it through this feedback loop, and we show you how to do that. The 5th part is we just call it take massive action. So now that you're in this state of newness, right, the only way to integrate transformation is to take action. You can't sit on a couch and think about it. So that's step number 5. Then from there, we have an amazing distinction, one of our favorite, called decide versus choose. And this is where you're going to understand what choosing your new life for the first time, you haven't made a single choice basically in your life. And you're going to get to choose your new life from this new way, this new person that you create yourself to be. And then we close it by helping you create a game, a 90-day game to actually integrate and implement all of that into your life. So as I was going through this, I was like, oh my God, this is so brilliant. You know, everyone always asks like, well, how do you do this? How do you do this? And we're like, well, I'm like, we kind of did it. We just never actually worded it that quite way. So it's really like uncover, remove, reprogram, create the feedback loop so that the new programs stay in place, create from that place your new version of you, go take massive action, and then create a game on how you can continue to do that. Pretty freaking simple, huh?
Tell them what they want, Johnny.
Isn't that good? I was like, how do we do that? I love you. So, look, we're getting here to the bottom of the hour, and we obviously want to honor your guys' time. So here's what we want to do. The masterclass, I'm telling you right now, is not for all of you. Okay? You have to be up to something. Right? And up to something like Liza and Karina and Kim and, you know, up to something as in like in the inquiry of what your human potential could possibly be. That's why we created the masterclass, because in 100 days, your life will never be the same. And I promise, like Marguerite's on here, she can share, like your life will never be the same. So if you guys want to go on that journey with us, or at least find out if that journey is the right journey for you, we've made it incredibly simple. You get to fill out a questionnaire and you get to explain to us where you're at in life right now. You know, you're at A, you want to get to B. Tell me what A is, tell me what B is. That way I can honestly tell you, like, the masterclass is for you, Liza. You know what? The masterclass is not for you, Liza. And we'll be really honest. So we made it as simple as possible. The application itself is $99. Now, why do we make it $99? Because my take, and sometimes people will argue about this, but my take is if you're today not willing to invest $99 in yourself to even find out if this transformation is possible for you, and this is not to sound like a dick, but what are we really going to talk about? You know, if you're someone who your idea of I'm going to create this transformation is by watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos and reading a whole bunch of books and having my life kind of sort of seem like exactly the same thing, but hopefully one day it will all turn out. Guys, Satori Prime is not really a fit for you. Like, we're about velocity. We're about getting results. We're about living your greatest self now, not 10 years from now when it, you know, maybe someday will hopefully all come together. So that's why I think, like, you're either going to step forward, say yes to something, follow that heart, follow that intuition, or you're not. And either way, I'll love you.
Yep.
We're just looking for, like, who are the people that we get to take on this journey that will get maximum value from it. So that's it, Guy. I'm sure put in the link there.
It up, yeah.
Yeah. But it's simple. SatoriPrime.com/masterclass. And then once you can just, like, go check out, fill it out, and then the application due after this call is done. You know, you don't have to sit there and do it now. Like, we're going to answer a couple more questions here or see if you guys have any questions. But Marguerite, just type in your 100-day masterclass is timeless. And each time I go into our studies, I learn something new every time. I'm going through a tough time currently, and your masterclass is a lifesaver. Thank you. By the way, to her point, you get access to all of the trainings and all of the recordings for lifetime when you join the masterclass. So keep that in mind. That's what she's kind of alluding to here.
Perfect. Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on that. Like, you know, to me, it's like the only reason to work with mentors is because you do want to, you're ready for mastery, and you want to move along that path as quickly as possible, right? We often say that good teachers, they don't tell you what to see, they show you where to look. Elon and I, after 16 years and working with tens of thousands of people, corporations, like you name it, you know, we've worked with such a vast group of different people. You find that there is kind of a human mechanism. And we don't actually believe that there's like a one way to do anything. That's why when people like Nico, you asked about our methodologies, we adopt from a lot of different places, including shamanic and plant medicine work and meditation and neuroscience and linguistics. Like, you know, you can imagine over 16 years of constant study, we've done quite a bit. Over the last 12 months, we've put just $300,000 into transformative experiences for ourselves that we get to take out and teach our students, and probably $1 million over our lifetimes in this last 16 years. So, you know, what we've gotten really good at is like dancing with our participants and kind of revealing doors to them so they can find the truth. What we got really good at is pointing at things at the right time in the right sequence so that it can reveal your inner truth to you. If it was like, here's what we think you should do, it's not as effective as you discovering it from within. So again, this program is a really great opportunity to go through like a structured experience that kind of Marguerite said is like timeless in terms of really helping people massively increase their self-awareness, giving them the ability to go into the self-love piece and really being with it, right? Like Marguerite is going through some tough times right now, right? I know like some of the stuff that's going on for you, love. And you know, part of the experiences, these are things that may have shown up in the past before, but while they were happening, she would either go into victimhood or wouldn't quite be able to be with what's going on. The beautiful part about like heartache and deep experiences like that is it triggers what we don't want to experience, what we've built a lifetime of trying to cocoon ourselves from, right? Like the job and the relationship, everything to not feel that pain that we felt as children. The beautiful part is that when you get to a point of awareness where even that level of pain, that thing that you haven't wanted to experience your whole life, you can just be with it. The amount of healing that happens and opportunity for quickly reprogramming, transforming yourself is massive, because it's at the core belief of what you hold to be true about you and about the world. And when that gets restructured, I have a feeling for Kim, that's like a really big deal, is that it shook, you know, experience like that shakes that core, and then suddenly something becomes available. So like, you know, our intention is to softly guide you towards your willingness to start being with these parts that you probably haven't wanted to be part of. You know, said simply is you're going to learn how to understand your mind and feel your body again, in really simple terms.
Yeah. Awesome. Guys, any questions about anything we covered? Anything you want us to shed some more light on, or any questions about the masterclass, YAP, timing?
I just want to reiterate again, if there's any questions, of course, please type them in. The app is fully refundable. We just want an upfront commitment from you guys so that we know our time is well invested. And if for some reason this isn't a good fit for you, you still want to work with us, we certainly have other opportunities. However, this is to qualify for our 100-day masterclass for sure.
Yeah. And by the way, if the $99 either gets refunded to you or credited towards whatever program you move forward with.
Yep.
You're very, very welcome, Kim. I've done reading books and watching YouTube videos and hoping to make it work one day. I will definitely join the masterclass. I'm too far in now not to try it. Yeah, you know, like, Kev, that's kind of what I found, and I love that you posted that. That's where I find people are at. Like, there's this notion, and I know this from playing tennis, right? Like, I'll give you my tennis analogy. I started playing tennis when I was pretty late. I was about 30 years old, okay? And I would go, there's so many trainings on YouTube of how to hit a tennis ball, and like by really, really gifted, amazing people. And there's online courses and all that kind of stuff. And I bought a bunch, right? And mostly because I just couldn't afford to have a real coach, right? But I bought a bunch, and I remember like our business started to grow, and I was like, okay, you know, I really like, this is something I really love. I want to hire a coach. Guys, like, this is the power of a coach. I was hitting with a coach, okay? And I was specifically on this one, I was hitting a slice, like a backhand slice. And all my slices kind of sailed. They would like sail really, really high, which is a terrible shot, by the way, but it's what I was doing. And the guy comes, the coach, like live coach, comes up and he goes, let me see how you're holding the racket. And I show him, right? And he goes, do me a favor, move this, guys, watch this. Move this finger here. From here to here. And he goes, now do the same thing. And it was like 10 in a row of just sheer perfection. And I'm like, you have got to, I'm like, really? Like, you got to be kidding me. Here's the thing. Why do Guy and I pay so much to work with coaches? We have all this information in here, in all of it, right? Why? Because you can't see your own way out of your own paper bag. Like, you just can't. You have to have someone there to see it from a different perspective and actually reflect it back to you. Could you have insights and epiphanies and aha moments and like absolutely, to a certain depth. And even Guy and I, with the relationship that we have and the ability to help each other and coach each other, like, it's not the same. So
I think that's really important.
Huge difference.
And I do think that's important because oftentimes that's what we do find is that people, they don't want to go from A to B, they want to go from A to Z. And that they're so future tensing that it's like all that creates so much overwhelm for them. And really what they're looking for is like, there's some basal programming going on over there. And it's so rigid, it's so fixated, it's so stuck. And it takes like, boop, like a little shift like that. And then all the macro shifts. So if you make like little micro shifts, it's like the macro changes. You know, I'd like to do this one time. Like people want to make these huge shifts, and it's like you don't need to make a big shift in your life. That's what overwhelms the system. That's why you go into old programming, and then you go looping back into stuff, and you know, hamster wheel effect. It all looks the same. When you are traveling down a path, if one of these lines changes by a single degree over a period of time, these lines are like this. It's a completely different life. So it's like these little reflection points. A lot of people are at the effect of what the mind is doing because they've never been taught the phenomenology of the mind, of how it's intaking information and processing it. So they're blind to certain aspects of what they are creating themselves. And it's just like a car, you know, when you're driving a car and there's a blind spot. If there's a car and you're a blind spot, you can't see it, but you turn your car into that lane, there's a very real impact on your life. Had you seen that car, you would make a very different choice. And, you know, you would get to where you're going a lot faster. It's really just the same, right? For the mind, it's illuminating what it can't see. For the body, it's feeling what you haven't been willing to feel. And it's just bringing everything back into the experience so that instead of having these conversations of what it should be like, how I should feel, how I'm supposed to show up every day, what I'm supposed to do for them, what I have to do over here, you can start really embodying all that life is. You can start being what a human being is, which is just being. And there's a lot of peace that comes along with that, please.
And by the way, one thing that I did forget to mention, once you fill out the questionnaire, I personally read them and I will personally be in touch with you. So it doesn't go to some like sales team or like you interact with me directly. So I saw Liza, Karina, Kevin are in, which is awesome. Look forward to connecting with you guys. And yeah, if anybody else has any questions about anything that we covered, something that was still left unclear. I know, Nico, you were asking some awesome questions. I'll give you guys my personal email. It's Ilan, which is ILAN @satoriprime.com. Feel free. Okay, I would love to assist in any way we can in your growth and development.
And I think I will wrap it up here, guys, if there's no more questions. And we can sit here, too, while this is happening. So if you have any burning questions while it is playing, I'll play you guys a quick video. These are people who we got to talk in front of for one day. And these are some of these are people we worked with a little bit afterwards also. But just to kind of give you a sense of the I want to say the quality, but also the expeditious nature of the transformative work that can take place for people. And you can see how rapidly it's shifting their experience of self and life. And I think it's really important. So you're not just hearing it from us. All right, guys, so I'll play this video. I'll be here again, looking for any questions, and I'll respond to them once it's played out.
I love you guys. I will talk to you all later.
All right, here we go.
Something that you've taught me has really changed the relationship between me and my children, to the point where I need to give you some serious recognition for it. You suggested that we change 2 words, and they were the words have to get to. So instead of saying I have to cook dinner for my kids, or I have to play with them, or I have to take them to school, or now I have to put them to bed, I have followed your advice and changed those words from have to get to. And all of a sudden, my little human brain changes the entire energy around that task from something that feels like a chore to something that feels like a privilege. And it has actually changed the relationship with me and my kids, because not everything feels like such hard work anymore. I love them to bits, and thank you so much for making my relationship with my children so much better just from doing that one little thing.
There was something I wasn't forgiving someone about, and that someone is my father. I was holding on to something. I was holding a grudge against him. And basically, Elon taught me that he did the best he could with the information he had, and at the time. So in my opinion, at first, I didn't see that. I couldn't see that. I just thought that he should have broke the cycle. And by me thinking that he should have broke the cycle, I was unable to see that he did the best that he could at the time with the information that he had. And by Elon simply sharing that story with me, it gave me the ability to let go and forgive my dad. So it was a major breakthrough for me. I actually feel lighter, and I know I'm going to feel even lighter once I get to go home and speak to my father.
Since I started following you guys back in 2016, not only has that had a profound impact on my life, but almost every single person that I've shared your content with, passed it on to people from Europe, the United States, Australia, where I live, they always write back to me telling me how it's impacted their life. And it's not just in one area. It touches them in business, it touches them in their relationships, it touches them in their relationship to themselves. So I think it was just about time that I said thank you from the bottom of my heart. What you have done for me and countless others is so freaking amazing. And I know that you're going to keep doing this work for probably the rest of your lives, or definitely for the rest of your lives, because it's in your blood. And for anybody who's considering the, I guess, possibility of working with Guy and Elon, consuming some of their content, all I can say is don't even think about it. Every second you're waiting is a second that you could be nourishing your mind, enriching your soul, and actually getting your machine that is you onto a path of creating the life that you really desire. I'm not just talking about things, but I'm talking about your state of being and the actual place you exist from in your life.
I come from old school way of thinking, especially where money's concerned. And today there was a really good breakthrough through something that Elon was teaching about the view of how we see money and how we see it in our lives. And when I first got into the business, I'm a Christian, and I got the message from the Lord that in His Word, He says, I'll give you the power to get wealth. Well, then Elon comes in the reinforcement of that, seeing that, you know, I was raised where it's okay to, there's no shame in being poor. My parents came out of the Depression, and they taught us, you know, the ways of if you don't need it, don't buy it, and those kind of things held me in a trap of when it comes to money and my viewpoint of money. But that's all gone now, and I'm so grateful for the teaching that money is a byproduct. It's going to happen. It's going to happen effortlessly because of a different mindset, and that mindset is that it's not okay to be poor, but rather that money comes to me effortlessly because of the value that we're taught to give, and that because of value that'll just happen. And I'm so grateful for that, and I just wanted to give a testimony about that and say how much I appreciate that in my life. It's a life change.
One of the things that I didn't realize was just how much what goes on in my head impacts me physically. It was obvious to me that I was holding on to something, so much so that in the last 3 or 4 days, and it was all about anxiety, it was about being here, meeting people, making sure that I was learning, not being home with the people I wanted to, and all of that was putting so much pressure on me that in my neck, for 3 days, I'd wake up every morning hurting. I even took a couple of pills thinking, you know, some Advil, thinking those things would get better. And amazingly, just going through that process with you, breathing, identifying it, understanding where it came from, it's gone. It went away that fast.
I have been in personal development for many, many years, and I'm very confident to say that I know a fair amount of what to do, what not to do to get connected with people. And even though Elon was on stage, like literally he was above the group, he managed to connect with the people in the audience. And that's a massive, massive talent of his. And he is not someone that he isn't. he talks from the heart. He listens to what his audience is saying, and he anticipated. I'm sure he had a PowerPoint presentation in his mind, but it wasn't needed because he doesn't improvise, but he just listens, like I said, and then he just tells him, and I'm sure that he just gets something from wherever, what he needs to send out. And at some points I was like, this is not him telling, this is him giving. And that was the biggest present of yesterday. And he was talking about beliefs. And throughout his session, my belief grew and increased, and that was amazing of yesterday. So
you know, when you get to that point in the day where you've been focusing so hard on what everyone's saying and you're kind of running out of energy and you're getting tired, and then Ilan comes on stage and within like 3 or 4 minutes, right, I'm back, I'm with this, I'm in the zone, it's all good. And so some of the stuff that he shares and the way that he talks about it on stage is so powerful, and you can't put it into words until you experience it. And the reason that I feel it's so powerful is because it's so damn authentic. He's talking purely from the heart. I mean, that's how he lives his life, that's how he runs his business. And one of the things that really made me laugh is he's saying, if my heart isn't saying fuck yeah, then it's fuck no, I'm not doing it. And I was like, yes, I resonate with that, it's fantastic. So, you know, so much value from that, so much value from everything that he does.
How powerful our beliefs are. And when looking at our beliefs on the inside and seeing exactly what is the dialogue we have inside, what are we saying to ourselves, what are we saying to other, how that really reinforces our present reality. And I just found also when he asked people to come up and share what their inner dialogue was and what they're experiencing, especially in our online world, and his way of reframing them in order to think in a more positive way and more constructive way towards the impact they want to give and the goals they're going after, it was just gorgeous.
And especially Ilan's presentation blew my mind. Like, Ilan, he doesn't know it yet, but he's going to change my life.
Yeah.
Like, I just know it. And
it was exactly what I needed to hear, because I have been feeling this exact same way about money, struggling inside and trying to understand why it is that I feel that way. And all the takeaways and the ideas that he's given me, I know that it's only going to help me to just completely battle and overcome this problem that I've been having. So thank you so much, Ilan. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your help. Thank you for what you do, what you bring to the community.
You're absolutely phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what comes next from you, and I can't wait to watch you at the next event. Thank you so much. Words can't explain how thankful I am.
Thank you very much, and for whoever is watching this, I hope to see you on one of his calls very, very soon.
I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you do, for you know, everyone that I know that attends your calls and your webinars, and for me personally as well. Thank you so much, my friend.
We love you very much.
All right, everybody. I hope you got a sense of it, of the kind of work that we do with people, the great impact that it can make. Thank you so much for your time today. Seriously, we honor that. We know there's a million places you could be. For all you guys who said that you've already taken the app, so if you come through, for those of you guys who are planning on taking the app, fantastic. We are so looking forward to working with you and to just helping you explore this amazing ride that we call life. Have an amazing day. Bye, everybody. See you next time.